Hello, this is Josh and welcome to the first video tutorial for Edexcel GCSE English Language. Today we're focusing on the imaginative writing question from paper 1, where you'll pick a writing brief from either question 5 or question 6. Before we get started, remember, any questions, throw a comment down below and I'll get to that as soon as I can. Okay, so let's start with the simple stuff. Imaginative writing only shows up in paper 1, which is the first paper you'll do. It's the only writing question you'll do. The rest will be based off reading an extract provided. But later on I'm going to show you how you can use that extract to help you write a really great story. So, how will you be graded? There is a massive 40 marks up for grabs in this question, split across two different areas. Looking at your spelling, grammar and structure on one side, and the content and story of the piece on the other. The way the examiners and you can see what counts for what on either of these sections is available in a mark scheme. Mark schemes are given to every examiner, which is kind of like a menu of grading options they can work off when looking at your writing. I'll throw a link down in the description to an example of one, and if you'd like a separate video going over them option by option, just let me know down in the comment section below. A question I get asked a lot is, how long should I spend writing my writing question? That answer is pretty simple. The guidance available for you is actually on the paper. Official exam advice tells us we should spend 45 minutes on this part of the question. You got to remember now that the entire paper is 1 hour 45 minutes long, so don't forget to watch the clock. Now if you have 25% extra time, you can add roughly 11 minutes to that, giving you 56 minutes to complete it. If you get 50% extra time, this gives you 1 hour and 7 minutes for the writing question alone. Remember, you've got to use every second of that time. They have absolutely guaranteed that you will not get the marks if you don't spend the time doing it, so you've got to use that time really wisely. If you're looking at things you can do to revise for this question, knowing how to use language features, especially emotive language, sensory language, simile, metaphor, and pathetic fallacy are really useful, as well as how to use punctuation and sentence structures. If you want to see a video with some top revision methods you might not have heard of, let me know down in the comment section below. Okay, lastly in the technical tips section is the question itself. As we can see, the question structure doesn't really change all that much, and it usually contains a key word or idea that it would like you to focus on. Another important note is the great lie. Write about yourself or somebody you know. Now this is not mandatory. It's an imaginative writing question, so let's be imaginative with this. You could write about how you and your best friend Barack Obama fought aliens on the moon, or about how you had a career in Hollywood. Examiners love to see engaging and interesting stories. They don't hire a private detective to check to see if you lied or not. Okay, so it's exam day, you're in the exam hall, the clock's started and you're ready to go, right? Wrong. Before you get cracking with that story, whether you're doing it first or last, we've got to organise our thoughts into a plan. The plans don't have to be boring lists, and if you follow my lead you'll be able to make something quickly that'll guide you right through the question. So the first thing you're going to want to do here is write down 5 or so language features you know that you can use really well. Now just the names will do. Having those to look at when you write will remind you to use them. Make sure you do the same thing with sentence structures too. It might really help if you tally off at the end of every paragraph if you've got the time. So the next thing you're going to do after you've done these lists is write down a handful of really cool words to use. Now you can revise these words beforehand, you can go to thesaurus.com, you can work out a huge list of synonyms, anything you want to do to make sure you've got all these words ready to go in your mind is great. But let's write those onto paper so we don't lose them, okay? Make sure these words are dynamic, make sure they have lots of power to them, make sure they're multisyllabic, make sure they're really easy to use as synonym for another word, Now, if you want me to do a video on some cool words to use like this, let me know. There's loads of words out there that you can use in your exam that's really going to catch your examiner's eye. Lastly, you've got to do a story circle. Now, I'm going to talk you through what goes in the beginning, middle, and end of a good story in the next few segments. But remember, your story circle is there just to remind you of where to go next. Make sure that when you write this piece, you're not trying to write an entire novel here. You're not trying to write Lord of the Rings. You just need a short, engaging, and descriptive piece that shows off all the great words you can use and shows you can manipulate a story with a resolution and a start with a kind of bit of a crisis in the middle. But I'm going to go through all of those in a minute. So you've planned it out, time to write it. Much like first impressions, the opening of your story counts. It's that baited fishing hook that'll reel in your examiner. Isolated sentences. These are single paragraph sentences, and when used to start a story, they can act as questions or mysterious statements that make the reader engage with what you're saying. People love a mystery. They want to find out more about what's going on. Isolated sentences, they stand alone as not only being a singular paragraph, they act as a focus point for the examiner to really zoom in on. Let's look at a couple of examples. A couple of my favourite opening sentences are from popular media. Let's see what you can do with them. The first one is, once there was an explosion. The second one is, not long ago, someone on Earth had a passing thought. Both of these are past tense statements, and that's intentional. Examiners love to see stories that are retroactively told, as it shows that you can manipulate tone and structure to suit your purpose. Take one of those sentences, see if you can write a really good story just based on that alone. So, for your first paragraph, once you begin to retell events, setting the scene is really important. It's not good enough to say what the character's surroundings look like. You've got to use sensory language for this. A novel is built around immersing your reader into a character's perspective. This isn't TV, this isn't film. We're not just focused on what you can see and hear. When you're writing a story, it's all about the five senses. Try to run through the five senses. Describe what your character sees, what they hear, what they feel, what's the temperature like, what they can smell, and what they can taste. Although the last one may not be usable. After all, you don't want your character going around and licking the walls. After that, you want to try and use some similes, metaphors, elemental language to describe these feelings. Don't forget, you can also talk about the weather. Use pathetic fallacy to foreshadow the events to come. Think about the overall emotional impact this story's going to have. Examiners and readers love to guess about what's going to happen next. We've now reached the middle of the story. This is often called the big flip. It's when things start to change for the characters in the story. Now the examiner, they're paying a lot of attention at this point. They need to see that you're able to manipulate the tone and emotion of this piece and pull off the big flip in a really meaningful way. And the best way you can prove you can do this is to make a happy story turn sad, a calm story turn exciting, or a peaceful story turn dangerous. Just because something's dangerous or angry or going bad doesn't mean there has to be action or violence. Some of the best stories are told through horror and thrillers and scary things and tension. So don't forget, you can use these things to make sure your big flip has that emotional impact. Now, a really great language feature to use here is emotive language, backed up with a little bit of sensory language with similes and metaphors to describe them. It's also worth noting you've got to show rather than tell. Don't just say he was angry. Instead, show the examiner the character was angry and let them work it out. Think about how they look, how they sound, what they might be doing to show they're angry. As the middle leads up to the end, don't make things hopeless for your characters. People don't care about hopeless situations. We're always looking for a way out, an escape hatch, one final shot to see things right. Okay, now we find ourselves at the end. Time to link back up to that starter sentence. Make all the foreshadowing come true. Make sure that pathetic fallacy has been impactful the way through and makes a lot of emotional sense. Now, a good point to talk about here is not every story needs to have a happy ending. Some of the best stories have sad endings or unfortunate endings. That's okay. Don't be afraid to tug on some heartstrings here. Make your examiner cry. You'll get all the extra points you deserve. Make sure you've got a little bit of hope though, left at the end. See, humans hate entirely hopeless stories. Think about any horror movie you've ever watched. There's always a little bit of hope there, a little bit of a chance that your character or your favourite character might just escape. It's even better when you can promise some false hope. Make it so your character nearly gets what they want, but falls at that last hurdle to get it, even if they go on to succeed later. Lastly, do not forget to link back to that opening line. Let's close that loop, that story circle. Then your examiner sees that you know tone really well. Okay, to finish this video, let's talk about some useful exam hacks. You remember that extract you got for the reading questions? You can use that. Loads of cool words, some of which have definitions, are ready and waiting for you to use them in your story. Why not go a step further? If you've got writer's block, the extract is often linked to the question you'll be asked. So why not take the best elements of that extract and convert it into your own story? Now, this doesn't mean copy and paste it all. You can still mess up doing this if you just plagiarize the entire thing, but draw inspiration from it. Change it around, change the time, change the characters, but keep that plot the same. Story writes itself. Don't be afraid to start with the writing question. Lots of students find the writing question the most tiring question. So use the energy on that one first. Don't come to it at the end when you're too exhausted even to look at it. It's 40 marks. You can't afford to miss this question. But don't forget to watch the clock. Don't spend an hour and a half or, God forbid, an hour and 40 minutes writing this story, because you've still got so many more marks to pick up in the reading section. So this last hack is one you can revise for. Practice writing lots of timed short stories at home and in class, then polish them up. Often the question on the paper is flexible, and you can fit any story you've written to the question. I've seen a lot of students bring in characters, bring in places, bring in an entire story and just change a few words to make them meet the question's criteria. Why not give that a go? So this brings us to the end of the video. If you have any questions, comments, ideas, get in touch. Let's see what we can cover. I'm planning on expanding some of these topics into feature-length videos at some point, with diagrams, maybe a few write-alongs. Anything you think will help, you let me know. And don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and place a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Take care.